My name is Sarah, and I am 35 years old. I work as a senior architect in Seattle. If my profession has taught me anything, it's that the most critical part of any building is its foundation. The part buried deep underground, hidden from plain sight. A building can be a masterpiece on the outside, but if there's a fracture in the foundation, it's only a matter of time before the whole thing comes crashing down. As an architect, my job is to ensure a structure can withstand any pressure. Yet, the brutal irony was that for the past 3 years, an invisible crack had been forming in the foundation of my own family. I saw it happening, but the moment I pointed a finger at it, my entire family gaslit me and told me I was losing my mind. For 3 long years, my stepmother, Martha, waged a silent psychological war against my 9-year-old son, Leo. She didn't leave any marks I could show a doctor. There were no bruises to photograph, no scratches to report to the police. Instead, she methodically attacked my son's spirit, his confidence, and his innocence. Whenever I raised questions or expressed concerns, the family threw the same accusations back at me. "You're crazy, Sarah. You're a helicopter parent. You're just projecting." My mental stability was constantly brought into question. So, I bought a voice recorder no bigger than a quarter and sewed it deep into the lining of my son's backpack. I left it there for 5 agonizing days. The audio captured on that device ended my father's marriage permanently. But that's not the part that keeps me up at night. What haunts me, what robs me of my sleep, is realizing what I was inadvertently teaching my son while I was busy waiting to gather hard proof. I need to start from the beginning, because the beginning is exactly where they first convince you that you're the crazy one. If you've ever stood entirely alone, carrying the crushing weight of the truth while your own family looks at you like you are the problem, this story is for you. My son Leo is 9. He is one of those quiet, empathetic kids who can spend all day lost in a book. He could talk for hours about dinosaurs and outer space. 4 years ago, my husband Mark and I got a divorce. It wasn't a bitter, screaming match kind of divorce. Our paths simply diverged. Almost overnight, I was thrust into life as a single mom, juggling my career and my son all on my own. Raising a child and keeping a roof over our heads in an expensive city like Seattle isn't easy. I spent my nights bleary-eyed, hunched over blueprints and maps, just to secure a good future for him. I was exhausted, but I was doing it all for Leo. My biological mother passed away 20 years ago. 5 years ago, my dad, Richard, married Martha. Martha was the kind of woman who looked like she had just stepped off the cover of a lifestyle magazine. She was always impeccably dressed, wore a permanent smile, was front and center at every social charity event, and baked incredible homemade pies for every holiday. My dad is a simple, blue-collar guy who spent his whole life working hard at a construction company. He had been incredibly lonely since my mom passed. He was completely dazzled by Martha's charm, her elegance, and her sweet words. Honestly, in the beginning, I liked Martha too. I thought my dad had finally found happiness again. As my hours at the architecture firm grew longer, Martha and my dad made an offer. They suggested Leo come to their house after school, from 3 to 6 p.m., until I got off work. My dad frequently went to the club or played golf with his buddies in the afternoons, which meant Leo would be alone with Martha for those 3 hours. I thought I was the luckiest daughter in the world. I took their spare key and silently thanked God that my family had my back during such a tough time. But you can never tell what's actually happening inside a building just by looking at it from the street. You have no idea how suffocating a room can be until you're locked inside it. The first red flag was so small, anyone would have brushed it off. One afternoon, I rushed over from the office to pick Leo up, only to find his favorite blue jacket, a birthday gift from his dad, ruined by a thick, sticky chemical stain that was impossible to wash out. Martha met me at the door instantly, her voice dripping with honey. Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. Leo was playing out in the garage and knocked over some old paint. You know how rowdy boys can be, they just can't sit still for a minute. But my architect brain is wired to notice the details. Leo never plays in the garage. He is terrified of the dark, the dust, and the spiders out there. When I knelt down and asked Leo what happened, he stared at his shoes and repeated her exact words. I was playing in the garage and the paint fell. But his voice sounded robotic, like he was reciting a line out of fear. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. That day, I convinced myself I was overthinking it. Kids change their minds, I rationalized. Boys will be boys. But that was just the beginning of an endless string of accidents. Leo's lunchbox started coming back completely full. This was a kid who used to devour his sandwiches and apples in minutes, but now he wouldn't touch his food. Martha smoothly explained that he was probably just eating too much at school, or that he only wanted junk food while watching TV, so she had to cut him off. But my son was coming home starving every single day. Then, one afternoon, I found a major school project Leo had been working on for 5 days, a model of a famous Seattle bridge made of cardboard and popsicle sticks, shattered and shoved into Martha's kitchen trash can. My heart sank. Martha wiped her hands on a towel and said casually, "Oh, Sarah." I was cleaning up and it accidentally got knocked off the table. It was so badly broken, I thought Leo would just cry if he saw it, so I thought it was best to throw it away. I'll buy him some new cardboard if you want. Every single time she had an explanation that sounded perfectly reasonable and incredibly sincere. If I had complained to an outsider, I would have sounded like a bitter, ungrateful daughter jealous of her father's new wife. But I am a mother, and I could clearly see my son suffocating from the inside out. He was losing weight. He stopped talking to me around the house. He forgot all about his dinosaurs. He started waking up in the middle of the night terrified, and his fingernails were constantly bitten down to the quick. The breaking point for my sanity happened at a Sunday family lunch. Martha's daughter and her 6-year-old granddaughter, Chloe, were visiting. What I witnessed at that dining table set off every alarm bell in my body. Martha was doting on Chloe, hand-feeding her, laughing at everything she did. But the second my Leo picked up a small slice of fruit, Martha's voice went dead cold. "Leo, why are you always such a mess? Learn to sit properly like Chloe. You have absolutely zero table manners." My dad was sitting right there. He didn't say a word. He just kept eating, brushing it off as a normal grandmotherly scolding. When I pulled my dad aside later and told him I didn't like how Martha was treating Leo, he patted my hand condescendingly. "Sarah, you're raising a boy all on your own. You're under a lot of stress at work. Martha's parenting style is just a little old school. She's just teaching him discipline. You're misunderstanding her. She has a heart of gold. She's doing us a massive favor." My own father convinced me that the problem wasn't Martha. The problem was my paranoia. For the next few months, the rest of the extended family made sure I felt the same way. My aunt called to tell me I should be on my knees thanking Martha for watching my kid, because nobody watches someone else's kid for free these days. She even suggested I get a therapist, claiming I was projecting my loneliness and divorce trauma onto Martha. She said I was just jealous and couldn't handle another woman taking my mother's place. This is the most dangerous trap a family can set for you. Once a family decides that you are the crazy, emotionally unstable one, no amount of evidence matters. Everything you do becomes a symptom of your illness. If I yelled, they'd say, "Look, she's unhinged." If I stayed quiet, they'd say, "Look how depressed she is." I knew that if I complained anymore, I would be painted as the villain, and everyone would pity Leo for having a mentally ill mother. So I fell silent. For my son's sake, I started doubting my own reality. I genuinely started believing that maybe I was a toxic mother looking for conspiracies everywhere. I used to lock myself in the office bathroom and just cry, feeling entirely powerless to bring my little boy's smile back. But last month, something happened that shattered every ounce of doubt I had. I was putting Leo to bed. The room was dark, lit only by a small nightlight. Leo was tossing and turning. Keeping his eyes squeezed shut, he whispered in a trembling voice, "Mom, am I really a burden to you?" It felt like someone had plunged a knife directly into my chest. The air left my lungs. Keeping my voice as steady as possible, I stroked his hair and asked, "Why would you ever think that, my sweet boy? You are my whole world. You are never a burden." His eyes snapped open. He was terrified he had said too much. Tears spilled down his cheeks, and he threw his arms around my neck, sobbing. "Please, please don't tell Grandma Martha. She'll say I'm lying again. She told me that if I bother you or complain, you'll leave me just like Dad did. She said you're already exhausted from work and that I'm just a huge problem for you." That night, the scared, accommodating woman who kept her mouth shut to keep the peace died, and a fierce, unapologetic mother was born. I didn't want to argue with them anymore. I didn't want to convince them. I wanted to completely obliterate the illusion they were living in. I realized this woman was holding my son hostage psychologically, terrifying him so badly he couldn't even confide in his own mother. I knew that planting a hidden camera or microphone was legally a gray area, but when a mother has to protect her child, she doesn't give a damn about society's rules. When the system fails to protect your kid, you become the system. The next day, I bought a tiny voice-activated recording device that could record for days on a single charge. I sewed it deep into the lining of Leo's backpack where no one would ever feel it. It was completely invisible. I left it there for 5 days, Monday through Friday. For those 5 days, I wore the same fake smile around Martha. I'd pick him up, thank her, compliment her cookies, and leave. Those were the longest, most agonizing 5 days of my life. I would sit in my car in the office parking lot and just cry. I was disgusted with myself for sending my son back into that hell, but I knew it was for the last time. I needed proof that no psychologist, no aunt, and no grandfather could ever deny. On Friday night, I brought Leo home, made his favorite dinner, and put him to bed. Once he was fast asleep, I ripped the device out of his bag and plugged it into my laptop. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. I put my headphones on. What I heard didn't make me cry. It turned me into ice. The recording started with the sound of the TV and clinking dishes. Then, Martha's voice cut through. It wasn't the sweet, melodic voice she used in front of us. It was dripping with a sharp, venomous hatred that could shatter an adult, let alone a child. "Why are you sitting in that corner?" she snapped. "Can't you see I'm cleaning? You're exactly like your mother, always in my way and causing problems for everyone else." Then the sound of something dropping. Maybe a book or a toy. Leo's tiny, terrified voice answered, "Sorry, Grandma. I was really hungry. I was just looking for my apple." Martha hissed back, "That food is for Chloe. Don't you dare touch it. Your dad already abandoned you, and if you keep this up, your mother is going to dump you in an orphanage. She's already sick of you. Go stand facing that cold wall, and don't move an inch until I tell you to. If you say a single word to your mother, I'll tell your grandpa you're a thief." The recording went on and on. There were hours of this woman psychologically crushing a little boy. She repeatedly reminded him he was unwanted. She told him that blood is thicker than water, and you aren't my blood. The most heartbreaking part? Leo never talked back. He silently absorbed every ounce of abuse, completely brainwashed into believing it was his fault, terrified that if he spoke up, I would abandon him too. For a 9-year-old, that is the ultimate terror. I finally had my proof. I had my answers, but I knew that dumping these audio files into the family group chat would be pointless. The family would just pivot. They'd accuse me of invading her privacy, call me manipulative, or claim I took her out of context on a stressful day. That's what toxic families do. They sacrifice the victim to protect the comfortable lie. So I formulated an architect's plan, When you want to bring down a corrupt structure, you don't attack the walls, you strike the main load-bearing pillar. I didn't need to fight the whole family. I only needed to deal with my dad. I called my dad at 8 a.m. on Saturday and told him I needed his help fixing something at the house. He came over alone, as he always did. Make no mistake, my dad loves me. He walked in with his usual warm smile and said, "Morning, Sarah. What broke this time? Leaky pipe?" I calmly guided him to the dining table. There were only 2 cups of coffee and my open laptop. No grand speeches, no crying. I just looked at him and said, "Dad, I am not here to argue with you today. I am not here to prove I was right. I just called you over to listen to something. After it's done, you are completely free to believe whatever you want and make whatever decision you see fit." I turned the volume all the way up and hit play on a compilation of the most brutal clips from those 5 days. Martha's venomous voice echoed through my spotless kitchen. "Your mother will leave you. You are a burden. You aren't my blood. Go face the wall. I'll tell them you're a thief." The moment the audio filled the room, I looked into my father's eyes. But I didn't stay. I didn't need to see his reaction, and I didn't want an apology. I just wanted to hold a mirror up to his reality. I walked straight out the back door onto my patio and slid the glass door shut behind me. It was a freezing, rainy Seattle morning. The damp chill cut straight to the bone. I stood out there in the freezing cold, exactly the way my son had stood frozen in fear every afternoon. The coffee in my hand turned ice cold, but I didn't feel it. I stood out there for 40 minutes. Dead silence from inside the house. I have no idea what hurricane of emotions was ripping through the man who had blindly trusted a monster while calling his own daughter insane. I don't know if he cursed himself or if he hated Martha in that moment. Finally, after 40 minutes, the glass door slid open. My father stepped out. He looked like he had aged 10 years in half an hour. His face was drenched in tears, and his shoulders were slumped like he was carrying the weight of the world. His pride, his old-school values, Martha's sweet lies, everything he had built his new life on had been reduced to ash by a few audio files. He stood before me, his hands shaking violently. His voice broke as he choked out, "Sarah, please forgive me. My baby girl, please forgive me. I truly didn't know. I had no idea she was like that behind our backs." I looked at him. I had absolutely no desire to hug him. In a flat, emotionless voice, I replied, "You didn't know because you chose not to look. When I showed you the signs, when I showed you Leo's fear, you chose to trust her fake smile over our silence. You chose convenience. It was easier for you to believe your daughter was crazy than to question your new wife. The choice is yours now, Dad. But my decision is final. Martha will never breathe the same air as my son again in this lifetime. If you choose to stay with her or justify her actions in any way, my doors are closed to you forever." I didn't leave that patio broken or crying. I stood there as a victorious, unbreakable mother who had finally dragged the truth into the light. I didn't care what he did when he went home. I didn't care what arguments they had. I had saved my real family, just me and my son, before we were destroyed entirely. It has been 6 months since that day. Everything has changed. My father filed for a permanent divorce from Martha. When she found out he had the recordings, she initially claimed they were deepfakes, and then she fake cried, saying she was just having a stressful week. My dad didn't listen to a single word. The relatives who called me crazy in the group chats, my aunt and my cousins, started flooding my phone with texts, expressing their deepest shame and offering pathetic excuses about how Martha manipulated them. My aunt wrote me a massive paragraph shifting the blame. I didn't reply to a single one of them. I cut them out of my life cold turkey. Anyone who is willing to label you insane during your darkest hour does not deserve a seat at your table. Leo goes to a wonderful new after-school care facility now. I pick up extra shifts to pay for it, and it is worth every penny. The teachers adore him. He is laughing and talking constantly again. He is seeing a fantastic child therapist who is helping him unpack his fears through sandbox play. Last week, he built a massive new bridge out of cardboard and wood, and he proudly displayed it right in the middle of our living room. No trash can swallows his dreams anymore, and no nightmares wake him up in the dark. My dad comes over every Saturday now. He tries his best to spend quality time with Leo and make up for his catastrophic failure. But there is still an invisible, heavy wall between us that might take years to tear down. I let him in because he is Leo's grandfather, and Leo loves him. But that blind, unconditional trust is gone forever. If I learned anything from this nightmare, it's this. Never let your child's inner voice be silenced just to keep the adults in your life comfortable. Proof is what you owe a courtroom, not your family. If you have to collect hard evidence just to get your own family to believe you, the foundation of that family rotted away a long time ago. If someone terrorizes your child in their own home, it's not a home, it's a prison. And as a mother, it is your first and most sacred duty to tear that prison down, even if it makes you the villain in everyone else's eyes. Have you ever faced someone in your life or family who played the absolute angel in public, but revealed a terrifying, cruel face behind closed doors? Let me know your story in the comments below. Learn to speak up for your rights and for your children's truth, even if the whole world stands against you. Remember, your child is looking only at you. If you doubt them, they will break forever. For more deeply emotional, true, and inspiring stories like this, please drop a like on the video and make sure to subscribe to Bookbite Studio. Share this video with your friends and family so no child ever has to suffer in silence. Thank you so much for your precious time. I'll see you in the next story.